I have a hot list of 10 plants I will always plant. And stick around for the 10th one because it's an old-fashioned plant that may be completely new to you. Come on over. Making guests feel welcome, one home at a time. Number 1, in my heart, Hellebores. I love Hellebores, also known as Lenten roses, called because they start blooming in late winter, Lent season, and that's where they get the nickname Lenten roses. They are rose-shaped. Now, one of the things I love the most about the Lenten rose, Hellebore, is that they are deer resistant. And if you live in the woods, like I do, you have a lot of deer that like to come visit your yard, see what's happening, and they just completely ignore the Hellebores.
Butterfly! No, that's a flower.
They are the perfect plant for many reasons. They grow in shade. That's right. So you can have them in a woodland garden with the deer and all the woodland creatures that totally ignore them, and they bloom happily away. Also, because the heads face down, it drops seed. Those seeds become little tiny baby plants, and before you know it, it can invade your space if you want it to, and just become a field of Lenten roses. I cannot stress how much I love this plant. Give it a try, and you will too. Number 2, hydrangeas. I think hydrangeas are one of the most beautiful and forgiving shrubs you can grow. I have many varieties in my yard, and they will perform differently in different soils and in different zones, so you really need to see what's best for your area. I have Annabelles, I have Bobos, I have variegated leaves, I have pistachio, which looks just like you would think, the green of the pistachio nut. I have many varieties, some pink, some blue. I'm working on lavender. They are a wonderful shrub. They start blooming in late spring and into summer, and I have a variety of them that go all throughout the seasons. Quickfire is maybe one of my very favorite with its bright red bloom in the fall. So hydrangeas are super popular, super forgiving. The only iffy thing about them is how to trim them and whether to trim them. So you'll need to read up on that, find out what works in your soil, in your zone, and how you trim them. And they will bring so much cut flower joy to your home. You'll thank me later. Number 3, azaleas. Now, azaleas are a very old-fashioned flowering shrub, and they used to flower one time, and those are actually called old-fashioned azaleas. I only buy the Encore Azalea. Now, Encore is the brand name, and they're called that because they will bloom at least twice, and some people can actually get them to bloom thrice. Yes, I have never achieved that, but I am perfectly delighted to have them bloom twice.
Once, twice, thrice.
They will bloom in the spring when there's not much of a leaf foliage, and it'll look kind of weird like blooms, but not much green. Then those will fade, the green will come out, and sometime in late summer, early fall, they will bloom again. Encore, encore, and that's why I love them. They are very easy to maintain. So I suggest you get one and try them for yourself. Number 4, spring bulbs. Now, as I moved south, I realized I had to kind of change my mind about what kind of spring bulbs I was going to grow. Daffodils, number 1, so easy. No creature wants to eat them. Nobody wants to disturb them. They will naturalize, meaning they will double and triple and clump. You can break them apart with a spade. Crack them, break them, plant them again, they don't care. They are just joy, and they come in so many lovely shades of bright yellow, soft yellow, yellow and white. Really great bulb. If you can only grow one bulb, that would be it. But I also love hyacinth. I had never grown hyacinth until I moved south. And They are the super, super, super fragrant flower. And I mean, you could be standing 6 feet away and still smell them. Wonderful spring happy flower. The bulbs can go into the ground if you have them in a container and you're just enjoying them, on your counter or just in a pot. When they're done blooming and the foliage has died back, you can just plant those bulbs right into the ground and they will return in the spring. They will also double, triple, and give you just a solid month of fun spring joy. You can get them in white, pink, lavender, wonderful shapes and colors and fragrances. Another one would be iris. There's an Iris reticulata, which is a very tiny, little tiny, beautiful bloom in early spring. They're blooming right now for me. And then there is the old-fashioned iris that comes out more late spring, early summer, and will bloom for some time.
Old-fashioned? Mm-hmm.
Now, the old-fashioned iris does have a bit of an issue in that when the bloom stalk is done, and you'll know when it's done, it starts to turn brown and and you cut that back, you're stuck with just the foliage, which here in the Mid-South is rather evergreen. It can get a little bit tattered and you can cut those out or pull those out as the new foliage comes about, but you'll want to hide that in your landscape. We do not particularly cut it back here, but you may need to where you live, but you'll want to back plant that, meaning something else is in front that's going to hide that foliage. But that is the only reason I give it a little bit of a thumbs down. Mostly thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Number 5, drift roses. Now, I've always been a fan of growing roses, particularly yellow roses. And I've had some problems with particularly the knockout roses, which I love. I think they're gorgeous. They're used in a lot of commercial landscaping, but they have disease issues. So I have backed away from that kind of rose. I grow the Oh So Easy rose, which is better, but can still have some insect issues. And I've gone almost completely to drift roses. Now, these are also sometimes called shrub roses, but the ones I get, I believe, are just called drift roses. What I love about these roses is that they will stay smaller. They kind of mound into what looks like a shrub, and they are disease and pest resistant. Yes, you heard me right. Nothing bothers them. And also the deer, at least here, do not eat them because they are very thorny. Very, very thorny. I have to wear long gloves when I work in them because they will just rip me to shreds. So animals leave them alone. I leave them alone. Self-defense mechanism built right into that shrub. Now, one of the things that people don't realize about drift roses is that you don't have to trim them. That's right. Unless you're trying to shape them into a particular shape, you just leave them alone because they don't have to have that trimming to regrow. They just keep blooming and blooming and blooming. The old bloom dies off, drifts down to the ground, and then a new bloom comes up and buries its dead. That's right. The new bloom will cover the old bloom. You never see what's left of that bloom. So I have many colors going on in my yard. Perhaps my favorite, and don't tell the others, is the popcorn drift rose, which looks like your buttered popcorn coming out of the microwave or off your stovetop. It's both yellow and white. It grows beautifully. People comment all the time, and it's probably available from one of our affiliates we've listed down below.
Show me the money.
Number 6, the autumn fern. Now, the autumn, I believe, comes from the way the leaf looks when it unfurls in the spring. It kind of has this orange bronzish look. It's very obvious that that is a new frond of the fern. But what I want to say about this fern is that it is an evergreen fern. So when everything else in your landscape has died back for fall and winter, the autumn fern is still beautiful in your landscape. It will clump up bigger and bigger and lusher and lusher. In fact, A really, really wonderful gardener came to my yard one time and said, I have never seen that size of an autumn fern. And that made me feel so special because my autumn fern was very happy in my landscape. I have it everywhere. I have it in the woodland garden, in the moon garden, in the side gardens, because it really does show off and looks great all the way into spring. I cut back what's kind of looking a little rough and a little worn, and the new fronds come out in that beautiful copper color. It is a win. I highly recommend it. Number 7 is the Japanese anemone. I had never grown this flower till I moved south, and someone gave me just a piece of it to try out and see if I liked it. They only gave me a piece of it because it will spread. It will clump out. It will spread little pieces here and there, and those are very, very easy to remove in late winter, early spring, when you're clearing out the dead old foliage and looking around and seeing, do I want that there? Is it too close to the grass? Okay, this is a bit of a surprise flower also, because in the summer, in the spring and summer, it will put out this very lush foliage. And I mean beautiful dark green leaves that just almost like a lily leaf that comes out and you think, is that it? I mean, it's pretty, but is that it? That is not it, because late summer, early fall, when everything else is kind of fading out and done blooming and it's almost time to plant your mums, this beautiful, tall, dramatic stalk will come up with a flower at the very end. It could be pink or white or purple.
Purple.
I have a lot of pink in my garden. I'm looking for purple. This bloom looks like a poppy. It is glorious and it waves in the wind, and this is where it gets its nickname, windflower.
It's a nickname.
Japanese anemone? Windflower, because it's so dramatic. And I mean, they're really tall. Mine can get up to almost 5 feet tall coming out of this foliage. Absolutely glorious. If you don't have one in your landscape, I suggest a small cutting, a small plant. Try it out. I think you'll be delighted. Number 8, Epimedium. I know that's kind of a tough word, Epimedium, but you'll want it, particularly if you're looking for a delicate ground cover in shady areas. This plant has never failed me. Everywhere I've put it, it has thrived. I've actually had a gardener say to me, I have never seen Epimedium that size. I don't know why it likes the ground here, but it does. And what I love about this plant is it comes out in the spring with these little tiny heart-shaped leaves that start out kind of purple and then they green up to this beautiful rich color. Also in the spring, it puts out this tiny, delicate yellow bloom on this little tiny purple stem that waves in the wind. I mean, it is a super, super beautiful ground cover. Very hardy. Looks like if you stepped on it, you'd crush it. You can't. Super, super hardy. How hardy is it, Chris? Well, let me tell you, it is resistant to everything that could destroy it in my garden. Deer, chipmunks, squirrels, voles, slugs, snails, nothing damages this plant. It was a new one for me when I moved south, and I'm so glad I have it. I stick it here and there all over, let it grow wherever it wants to. It's a very, very happy flower. Number 9, Perennial Salvias. Now I only grow one salvia in my yard, and it's this one, Black and Bloom. That's the real name, Black and Bloom. It is perennial in zone 7 and up. Now, a lot of garden centers want to argue with me about that, but I show them pictures of my beautiful salvia growing in my woodland garden, and they just gasp with delight. And let me tell you, it is stunning. And it's stunning because of what it looks like all summer long. That is a black stem, like purple black, that comes up with this lush foliage, dark green foliage. And then the bloom stalk itself is a deep, deep purple, almost leaning towards black. And let me tell you, the hummingbirds love it. I'm convinced I have families of hummingbirds returning each summer, particularly for that plant. I have other plants in my garden for them, but they go to this one.
That's a beautiful theory.
I have actually been standing in the crop of black and bloom salvia, standing still with hummingbirds around me. Delightful. Mine get about 5 feet tall. Yes, 5 feet tall. Now they are probably 3 or 4 years old, and so they are getting bigger every year and spreading, clumping, getting more lush each year. If I go in and I trim back the blooms, if I stay on top of it, they will rebloom. Now the only downside of this beautiful plant is that they can get a little top heavy from the bloom, and so sometimes I need to go in and stake them. But even if I don't, and they start to kind of lay down on the ground, they will still bloom. The hummingbirds will still fly in, but they would rather be up and enjoying it. The great thing about salvia is that they don't require much. They don't really care about the soil. So being in my kind of not so great woodland area in the partial shade, in kind of a clay, kind of not mixed soil, I don't even water them all the time. They love it because salvias tend to like a drier soil anyway. Now all salvias are beautiful, but the perennial black and bloom, that's on my top 10 list. And now number 10, the old-fashioned flower called the Sundrop, which I'd never heard of until I moved south and a gardener introduced me to this wonderful flower. What's so great about it, you wonder? Well, first of all, it is a perennial and it is evergreen in a way. It has a beautiful, what's called a basal rosette down at the base of the plant. That's kind of a purple green. It looks good just as a ground cover with no bloom whatsoever. But when it does bloom, it blooms a shockingly lemon yellow. It's part of the evening primrose family. I was most familiar with the soft pink evening primrose, but this shocking yellow is even more fun. Now, the great thing about this plant is it thrives in very dry and moderately dry soil. Don't have to worry about watering it, not even in the south, which takes a lot of heat, which it will do. It will take full sun, which I have by the mailbox, and it will take part sun, which I have along the edge of the woods. It does spread. It spreads in a succulent kind of way, little rosettes popping up around and moving along, and I have trained it all down the side of my woodland garden. I absolutely love it. And it stays there all year long. I can see where it is, I can see where it's going, and I could remove what I don't need. So if you're looking for a beautiful ground cover, I highly recommend it. You'll always have that ground cover, and in late spring, early summer, you'll have the beautiful blooms. Now, this is my top 10 list. You may be like, no, don't love all of those. Or you might have number 11 and number 12 for us. If you do, please comment down below and just educate us even more, because gardener to gardener is always the best way to learn. What didn't you like? There was something you didn't like. You grimaced. Hellebores. Lenten. I touched the microphone. Okay. They are deer resistant. And if you live in the woods like I do, you have happy deer. Who cares about happy deer?
You have happy deer.
I mean, are deer happy? I'm not sure they're happy. Oh, they do have little tails that wag. That could be a happy deer. Okay. Also, very important is nothing, because I already said it. You'll thank me later. I don't know why you'll thank me, but you will. You will just be so thankful. Come on over. Now go make someone feel special today.